Today in episode 123 of Rail Talk, we react to a monster weekend of stakes action across the country and welcome Mark Casse to the show to talk about his new appointment as the OBS chairman and all of his insights on the rest of the industry's issues. I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds, and I just got to give a major tip of the cap to Bad Bunny for the coolest Super Bowl halftime performance that I've seen since Prince in the Rain in Miami in 2006. It was awesome. It was so joyful, hit all the right notes symbolically, like expertly produced. I love the cameos from the celebrities that they didn't make a big deal about the celebrities being there. They were just kind of in the background to support. And yeah, I just loved it. It had all of the great notes of Latin culture that I'm so familiar with growing up in New York City. So shout out to Bad Bunny.
Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. Was there a football game on this weekend, Joe?
Oh yeah, that's right. Also, I want to shout out the New England Patriots, who now are at the top of the list in Super Bowl losses. The 6th Super Bowl loss for the New England Patriots. Congratulations, guys. Nobody loses Super Bowls like you do. The opinions expressed on Rail Talk are those of hosts Joe Bianca and Jon Green and do not reflect those of anybody we work with or work for. Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade. We talk a lot about the TaylorMade Stallion roster, and obviously Not This Time is the headliner, the king of that roster. But I also always mention that there's a lot of other value stallions on that roster that you can get involved with for not the huge price tag that Not This Time commands. We talk, Tacitus is a horse that West Point has 2 Tacituses. They weren't great as 2-year-olds, but that's because he wasn't great as a 2-year-old. Those horses are going to get better as they get older and go longer. And we saw it with Silent Tactic winning the Southwest on Saturday. So I think that's just the first of what you're going to see of a lot of Tacituses starting to run better as the races suit them better as they get through this 3-year-old campaign, the first crop of 3-year-olds. Also, shout out to Nick's Go. Obviously, we got Ewing coming back next Monday. We're very excited about that here at Rail Talk and at West Point and DJ. We got a couple early votings. So definitely go check out the TaylorMade Stallion roster and get in on the ground floor of some of those other stallions that you never know might blow up in the next couple of years and be in that Not This Time tier. So we talked about it last week. It was an absolutely jam-packed weekend of stakes races, in part because of all the weather cancellations and rescheduling. So we have a little bit of a lull in the racing until kind of the end of the month now. So this was a smorgasbord. I hope if you played, you did well. I did give out Silent Tactic at 12-1 to win the Southwest last week on the show, which proved that I can pick a winner from time to time. Mark Casse had a tremendous weekend. We're going to talk to him in a little bit. Swept the Martha Washington, the Southwest, and the Bayakoa. And so that's where I'm going to leave it to John, because it was a very, very disappointing week for the West Point horses, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But since I don't want to start the show on a negative note, I'm going to ask Jon Green what he thought of the Queen Nitrogen's return to the races.
It was really cool, Joe. No,
okay, that's right.
Obviously, having a champion come back and then step up her game a little bit, warms your heart, because as you know, there's no guarantee, and we've had it especially with young fillies, 2-year-olds turning 3 turning 4, that there's no guarantee that they're going to take the next step, and she took a huge step forward. Lifetime best buyer of a 97, won the grade 3 convincingly at 80-85% fitness. But the main thing to me, Joe, is that she's still kind of playing around a little bit, and that's good. On the one hand, it means that she had a lot left in the tank, down the stretch. But down the road, when you start running it against the big girls, you can't leave anything on the table. And she still has a tendency mentally to get to the front and be like, okay, that was fun, and kind of like swerve out a little bit. Yeah, and that can't happen, as the stakes get bigger. But be that as it may, for right now, where we are with her, she again broke through a glass ceiling, exceeded our expectations even, and it was great to see the smile on Mark's face, because I've never seen him as nervous for a non-grade 1 than he was for that race. And I know I was nervous because I called him about every day for a week, just asking him simply, how's the big mare doing? Okay, bye. How's the big mare doing? Okay, bye. And just to make sure that she was still on pace to be able to run. But, Joe, when you have a horse like this, part of, the management is, okay, what's the next race? But part of it also has to be like just bathing in the success and the fact that she came back and had that next step forward, because that is not a guarantee, my friend.
No doubt. And it just goes to show you, when you send as many nice horses to Mark as you do, the privileges you have. Because if I called Mark that often, he'd block my number. I have no doubt about it. So it's good to know that you have that open line of communication. And yeah, I mean, this is gravy to me, like if I owned her, because, you know, a lot of times, especially with fillies, you know, you go on the bench after the Breeders' Cup. You don't know what they're going to come back like, if they're going to come back at all. Sometimes they take 6-9 months to get back to the races. Sometimes they come back and they don't want to do it. So the fact that she was back in 3 races kind of forced her way into the starting gate for this race. And, you know, like you said, it was not at her 100% best and still won. That goes to show you how special she is and how one of one she is.
No question about it. And it was really, you know, wonderful. I got to watch the full, you know, gambit of races that we had that day. We had 5 horses running that day, and the other ones ran okay. You know, Sandman kind of ran, you know, not great. And we talked to Mark a little bit about that, you know, later on in the show. But you know, his comeback wasn't exactly what we wanted. He had some excuses, and you know, maybe he's kind of needs a little more time rounding into form. But to be able to share the win with my dad, and watch the race and just feel giddy about it. And sometimes when a horse is 2 to 5, it doesn't happen that often for us, but sometimes when a horse is 2 to 5 and they win, you're like relieved about it. This one, I was giddy. About the way she ran and knowing that she still had something left in the tank and that she's still developing and moving forward. And she didn't have a lot of time off, but Joe, she is about a professional racehorse as we've ever had. She hates downtime. She does not like it. She wants to be out on the racetrack. She knows she's good. She knows she's got talent, and she doesn't like to be just kind of sitting around. And even though she was out in the paddock and she got a little swim time and everything, that's not what she wants. What she wants is to be on that racetrack and to be going around circles and just running the way that she was, you know, that Mother Nature intended her to be. And I give, you know, Mark a lot of credit, because part of him being a 2-time Hall of Famer is the fact that he's got great training skills, but he's a psychiatrist also. And he noticed that she was not happy. And he was like, you know what, you know, our plan was to do this. She's got other plans, and we're going to yield to her wants and needs.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you got to know your individual horses. So that was great to see. Lots of big 3-year-old stakes across the country. Yeah. I mentioned Silent Tactic. You know, he got a better setup than he did in the previous race. That's why I liked him. I thought Dakota actually ran really well. To hang in as long as he did, you know, on a pretty quick pace, stretched now from 6 furlongs to 1 mile and a 16th. Maybe he doesn't want to go long eventually, but he's going to be a one-turn beast, if nothing else, later this year, because I thought he ran sneaky well. Yep. Silent Tactic, I think, you know, it's good to see the Tacitus's start to run. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like this, you know, his horses as 2-year-olds just straight up looked like duds. And I always felt like, yeah, but he was a dud as a 2-year-old, you know, he's got better at 3, 4, 5 years old. Like that's one thing that I believe that that certain sires pass on, not just like sprint or route or turf or dirt, but how they develop. And we have 2 Tacituses that have had like some setbacks, and it made me happy to see, you know, his horses start to run better, as I imagined they would going 2 turns into their 3-year-old year. Renegade won the Sam Davis. I thought he was horrifically overbet in that race, and the other horses that, you know, kind of had shots on paper didn't get great trips, but, you know, he ran well enough, got a 92 buyer. Bob Baffert won his 8th straight Bob Lewis Stakes with Plutarch, another son of Into Mischief, got a 90 buyer in that race. Talk to Me, Jimmy. That was such a weird race in the Withers. For him to go to the front and just draw off like that, but only get an 83. It was a pretty slow race. Yep. That is just one of those races where I'm like, I don't want anybody coming out of there, because first of all, it was a speed favoring track, and, you know, the winner ran well, and, you know, he was a cheap purchase as a yearling. I like to see those horses do well, but Jesus, nobody else ran behind him, John. Like that was a pitiful race behind the winner. And I don't know, was there any? There wasn't anybody that like really jumped out to me from the weekend from the 3-year-old races, especially relative to how strong the crop looks. But I don't know, maybe you feel otherwise.
I think, Joe, we'll find some more things to talk about after this weekend with the fairgrounds races. And there's always historically horses that springboard out of those races and all of a sudden, elevate themselves to the top of the class when it comes to Kentucky Derby conversations. I'm going to shift back again as a homer. I'm going to talk a little bit about the filly, about Zany, about Mike Repole's filly, the American Pharaoh out of Mo Green and Uncle Mo Mare that he bought off of us at the Fasig-Tipton Saratoga Select Sale last 2 years ago, I should say. And I thought she ran really well, again, similar to what was, vexing our filly Nitrogen. I think Zany was kind of running a little, around down the stretch and not necessarily going straight, was on the wrong lead at one point, but had the talent where she could, kind of mow those horses down and just keep going. So it was as big of a weekend as it was for our man, Mark Casse. It was also a big weekend for our man, friend of the show, Mike Repole, as well, with regard to his 2 stake races wins at Tampa.
Is he a friend of the show? I don't know.
I think he's a friend of the. He's our friend. He's a friend of me.
He's a friend of me of the show.
We can go with
say that.
I would say he's the royal friend of ours, but then Patty will yell at me saying that I'm using it incorrectly again. So anyway, yes.
Peek behind the curtain of the petty squabbling that goes on this show. Yeah, I mean, she ran well. Like, it was a 2-horse race on paper. Like you said, she is still a little green, but overall, like, I am just not impressed with the 3-year-old fillies. Like, even in our race and the race on Sunday, like, I didn't think the winner was all that impressive. Like, this is the division, like, in contrast to the Colts division, where it's like, man, you can pick 12 different horses that you think like have a legit chance right now to be Derby winners, like, and impressive Derby winners. It's very, very hard to point out a filly that's like clearly above the rest. And that kind of leads me into the weekend that we had, which was incredibly disappointing. Like, I got to be fully honest. Like, it's you take it all in perspective. Like, none of this is life and death, but John, it. We wrap ourselves up in these horses, and when they run, and we get so excited. And this was such an exciting weekend for me and the West Point team. Like, on paper, Counting Stars on Friday, Sandman on Saturday, Super Corredora on Sunday. And it was devastating, to be honest, like, to watch all of them run so poorly. Sandman didn't run terribly, but Counting Stars totally, packed it in. The stretch got eased. Thankfully, she's okay physically, which is obviously the most important thing. Sandman got in a little bit of traffic trouble, but I thought still didn't kick in the stretch when he had room the way I expected him to. And Super Corredora was the most surprising of the 3 because she had been training so lights out. Like, her works at Santa Anita have just been unbelievable. And if I want to like nitpick and be critical, I thought Hector Berrio should have just sent her like he did in the Breeders' Cup. Mm-hmm. Like, he did a good job getting over to the rail from the first turn, but then he gave it right up and let Explorer come through on the inside and ended up dueling with her down the backstretch. Now, she really had nothing in the stretch, so it might not have mattered. She might have finished last anyway. But I think with a horse like that has that kind of speed, if nobody else is like definitely sending, you put her on the front end and say, come and catch me, and let her get brave. But like I said, it might not have mattered, but I don't know. It was very, very difficult. And this is a privilege, honestly, to be this wrapped up in horses that you have, a rooting interest and a vested interest in. So I'm cognizant of that, and I'm grateful to have such a cool job where we, get to have, to compete basically at the highest levels of the game. But it does have its valleys, and just being completely forthright, like, this was a very, very difficult weekend for me and the team at West Point. And, we'll bounce back. We'll have brighter days, but John, I'm sure you've had weekends like that where the expectations are high and everybody's excited, and then just everything falls flat.
Yeah, and Joe, I give you credit also, because it's one thing to have horses at the highest level and have them maybe not fulfill what your expectations are, but I only have to answer to one person. You, on the other hand, my friend, have to make the same Groundhog Day call 5-10 times. I mean, maybe not that many times, but over and over again, because you have partners that you have to explain things to, and it's a lot of people who are newish to the game, and maybe you don't pick up on certain nuances or appreciation, the fact that you won the Breeders' Cup, you were champion, and then you're coming back and maybe didn't take that next step. You and I understand that because we've been in the game for a long time, and that's kind of like nothing's ever given. But I think when you have expectations of a horse and you don't have context of like what it really means, it must be hard to kind of explain that and be patient with people, because they're disappointed too. I mean, it's for them, it's their one baby. You're able to spread it out over a portfolio of different horses, and it's important. But you also have horses, like you said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the following Thursday, Friday. So you're like on to the next opportunity or the next horse. But for a lot of these people, like, that's it. Now they have to wait a month before they're going to get an opportunity to see their horse again. So it's got to be difficult to make that call and have that conversation, not once, not twice, but numerous times.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because that is the hard part of the job is managing disappointment from like an array of people. And I got, to their credit, most of the West Point partners they get it, and they roll with the punches. Obviously, as you said, like, if you are newer to this, like, it's more devastating, and it's harder to get over. But yeah, that is the hardest part, because like, especially like when the horses don't run at all.
Yeah.
Because like, if they run like somewhat like Sandman did, you can be like, okay, well, this was a springboard for him. He got in some traffic. But with Counting Stars and Super Corredora, it's like, I got nothing. Like, they're animals. That's like all I can really say, is that they're animals and they're not guaranteed to show up every single time. So that definitely is the hardest part. And I appreciate you bringing that up and the empathy to that, because yeah, it's as great as it is when we all win as a team, that's how shitty it is when we all lose as a team. And you see both sides of it. But yeah, I mean, we're confident that these horses will bounce back. And yeah, it was one of those weekends where I was like, I was kind of surprised how down I was, honestly, because as you say, like, I get to live vicariously through all the horses. Like, it's not as if it's all my intentions on this one horse or these two horses. I get to kind of celebrate and ride the wave with all of them. But yeah, this was a particularly hard weekend, and just want to giving people like a little bit of insight into kind of what it's like, because to be fair, like, we come on the show and we celebrate, we pat ourselves on the back a lot. So I do kind of want to give some kind of context, and like, when things don't go so well, it's not all fun and games. And there are a lot of downswings in this game, John. And that's what honestly makes the high points so sweet.
Right. No, absolutely. And like we say, time and time again, if you win 1 out of 5 races, you're way ahead of the game. I mean, if you're at a 20% win percentage, people start to whisper that you're cheating. That's how, that's how high, rare air as it is. So, if you have to make 5 out of every 6 conversations that you have to have about a horse with people are going to be, the horse didn't run the way I hoped it would, or the horse didn't win for whatever fill in the blank, reason is. It does make you, or should make you, want to celebrate the 1 out of 6 when they do, hit the wire first and win and everything like that. So, I think if you're in this game, you got to be a glutton for punishment, but you also have to have thick skin, because you're going to be wrong a lot more times, or you're not going to win a lot more times than you do.
Rail Talk is sponsored by Epic Insurance Brokers, one of the nation's top retail insurance brokers, providing expertise across key lines of insurance like property and casualty, employee benefits, and unique specialty insurance. Another guy who's unique and special is our buddy Chris Moore, who leads Epic's equine specialty practice. You see him all over the place at the sales, at the races. Can't wait to have a Corona with him at the Tiki Bar at OBS March. He's a great hang, and he knows his business, like I said, because he owns and breeds and he insures his own horses. He's got experience in the field that he can transfer to you when you're trying to figure out all of the insurance mess. There's a million different things you got to consider: full insurance on the racetrack, breeding. You starting your breeding matings for the year. You got to worry about the mare, and it's a lot to process. And Chris is the guy to get all of that in order for you and get it all sorted out. The topic of conversation, one of the topics of conversation right now, is revisiting insurance values on your newly turned 3-year-olds. Because like, if your insurance policy is stale, I mean, it's probably the relationship and not your policy. We're doing it at West Point now, having to revalue all these horses at the beginning of the year. So Chris is the guy to get that done with. And that leads us to this week's
Epic Performance of the Week.
This week's Epic Performance of the Week, and there was a lot to choose from. I'm going to go to a first-time starter, maiden winner on Saturday at Tampa. This was in the 6th race, Emerging Market. This is the son of Candy Ride. Not too many Candy Ride sons being out there right now, and he was incredibly impressive. It looked like a live race on paper, but there was another firster for Todd Pletcher in the race named Power Shift, who actually got bet down to almost even money, and those two duked it out down the stretch. They were 13 and a half lengths clear of the third place finisher by the time they hit the wire. Emerging Market emerged as the 3/4 length winner, got a 96 buyer, and I just kind of want to flag him as yet another potentially massive player and star in the 3-year-old game right now. The 3-year-old crop, it's on a broken record, but it looks phenomenal to back up another phenomenal class last year. So this is a horse that, even though he's just had that one start, that was incredibly impressive, and you got to consider him a top 10 contender right now as we head into kind of the second wave of the 3-year-old prep. So Emerging Market is this week's Epic Performance of the Week. Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. No other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do. They had a homebred champion last year who just came back and won her 4-year-old debut. Shout out to Team Nitrogen. I know that was crazy exciting for you guys. On the business side, the Green Group's got almost 1,000 clients in the horse business because they make them money and save them taxes. As always, there's a special exclusive offer for listeners of Rail Talk. Complimentary, confidential, half-hour consultation with the GOAT, Len Green, where he guarantees he'll find you value. All you got to do is call him up. And what's that number, Michael Agresta?
732-634-5100. Green Group.
As you can see, without John here, I have a little bit more room to dance on this dance floor. So call him up at that number or go to greenco.com. Len guarantees he will find you value, but you don't have to take it from me. Take it from another satisfied customer and love the sponsorship synergy. Our buddy, Chris Moore, let him tell you all about how Len and the Green Group have made things easier for him.
Well, I'm a partner at Epic Insurance Brokers, to which we work closely with DJ Stable and the Rail Talk podcast, but how they treat the equity that I have in that business, the income that I have, from my W-2 perspective and some other private investments that I have. So not only is it just, hey, we'll advise you strictly and solely on this horse business aspect. It's no, they're able to take care of me, and they understand my entire financial picture and provide holistic advice. So we're able to make the best decisions that we need to make from a taxation and tax planning standpoint. Even a customer like me where, I know that I'm not one of their larger customers by any means. However, I know that I get that personalized and that expert treatment, even though I'm not, one of the bigger guys or one of their biggest customers. It's meaningful. So their ability to provide that high level, top quality, best in class advice while still being able to provide, that personal touch and that service, to me, it's, that tax spend is the best spend I have all year. So I couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Thank you, Chris. As I mentioned, can't wait to see you in Ocala. And thank you, Len and the Green Group. Congrats on a great start to the year with your star mare. It is mid-February. Tax day is right around the corner. Those returns are piling up on Len's desk. If you want him to help you and find the biggest benefits for you as a participant in this industry, you got to call now. Do not hesitate. 732-634-5100, greenco.com. Start the conversation. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. So we are so thrilled to bring this next guest back to the Rail Talk studio, friend of the show, coming off a sizzling hot weekend at Oaklawn where he won all 3 of the major stakes races. Mark Casse, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you. Always a great time to have you, but obviously incredible timing right now. We'll get to all of the results on the racetrack in a short bit, but you broke some news to us as we were preparing for this interview that you are now the new chairman of the Ocala Breeders Sales. First of all, congratulations. That's amazing. Claps
Thank
for
you.
Mark.
Thank you.
What's kind of your, I know it's super early, obviously, but what's kind of your vision for, how you want to see the future of OBS now as the new chairman?
Well, in anything I do, Joe, I've always said, if you stand still, you get run over. So I guess probably it's just trying to continue to be better. The sales have been stronger and stronger. I mean, amazing. You sit there and you see we sold 4 Breeders' Cup winners. 4 of the Breeders' Cup winners in 2025 came out of the OBS sales. On a personal note, just this weekend, at the Southwest, the $1 Million Southwest, the first 3 finishers came out of the OBS training sales. So that tells you something. I think, as I say, I want to be better, but most importantly, the most important thing of all is to keep our equine athletes safe. So we're going to continue to try to make that better. We've already implemented a few different procedures. One, we have a new whip rule that we're going to stay after and make sure nobody disobeys it. We also are implementing a new procedure where every horse, before it's allowed to work, has to be examined by a veterinarian and given a clean bill of health. So I think that's important. We've also made our medication rules stricter. So we take the horse's safety. It's our number one goal.
And Mark, in addition to the many hats that you wear, you just mentioned the chairman of OBS. You're also on a little organization with me, with Thoroughbred Racing Initiative, trying to fight the decoupling, initiative by First. I'm not going to get into the details of how that's going, because it's kind of going according to plan, at least the way that we see it with the House and then ultimately with the Senate. But what are you seeing, or what would you like to see if ultimately we don't race in South Florida anymore at Gulfstream? We did the feasibility study. There were 4 or 5 or 6 different options. In Mark Casse's world, what would be your top couple of options?
Well, John, it's my feeling, and you know this already, that I don't think South Florida is a good place to race for the horse. The environment is the toughest environment we probably face anywhere when, we go around racing, which I find it interesting. A lot of people, want to have ideas, but very few come and ask the horseman what's best for the horseman. I look at it as we have 2 alternatives personally. I think possibly Tampa. But Tampa would have to get on board. And, we don't want the same problem we're going to have. Look, without a doubt, John, you know this as well as I do, we are coming out of Gulfstream. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts. As horsemen, I think we're anxious and looking forward to a better future. So I think that's either Tampa or Ocala. If you'd asked me about Ocala 5 years ago, I would said that was impossible. But with the growth, with WAC and all the things that are going on, I think that is now a real possibility. And so we're looking at a lot of options. There's a lot of things going on behind the scene. But first we got to get through this, and I don't want to say too much, but Gulfstream comes, we deal with Gulfstream, then they go and change things. We've had a long relationship with Gulfstream, and they are where they are partly because of the horsemen. And we're getting ready to get a divorce. And through all divorces, there's 2 sides. And I think the decoupling is important because they just can't walk away and leave us. We have to build a new future. And they've benefited, according to them. I know it was bought for $90 million. Now they say it's worth $2 billion, not to mention how much money they've made along the way. And you got to remember, so much has been said, well, the harness don't have to be coupled anymore. The greyhounds don't, but this is different. We were a team. We did this together. The other thing is they went and bought out all the other racetracks because they wanted to be the only one in town, and now they don't want to play anymore. So these are all things that we're working on, we're talking about, and that we're going to make sure that the governor and the Senate know all about it.
Yeah. No, and you did, and that's part of the reason that DeSantis came to OBS last year and basically killed the first iteration of that bill. So, but it's obviously an ongoing fight, as you mentioned. Let's talk about the racetrack results. Oaklawn has been an incredibly impressive meet for you and your team. Obviously, I mentioned you swept the 3 races over the weekend with Silent Tactic, and then the filly in the Martha Washington and Nitrogen, obviously. You didn't always race too much at Oaklawn. This is more of a recent thing for you. Obviously, the money's good, but are there any other reasons that you decided to go this route, and kind of the reasons why it's going so well for you?
Good question. If anybody followed us, we would always go to New Orleans, and I've come out on many occasions and said that I fully support HISA and what they're doing. I've been so impressed with Mr. Sella and Oaklawn Park. They continue to be cutting edge going forward. They're doing things before it's required. I talk about if you stand still, you get run over. They don't stand still. Now, obviously, the purses are great. But look, they just got hit with some of the worst weather you could ever get hit by. And I was amazed on how good their racetrack is. And for us, that's important. I've talked about the slept at many, many times. This is how we judge soundness of horses. And you would be amazed how good the horses come out of their races and their breezes at Oaklawn. So those are things that got me there. You asked about our success. It's interesting. Over the years, I've been doing this a few, Joe. I think I'm on my 48th year. Some of our best meets have come after our worst meets. I think we were 1 for 38 at Churchill. So you know what that tells you? That tells you we have a lot of conditions that we haven't, and to be 1 for 38, I would have said there was probably 8 or 10 horses that ran that I felt like should have won or, had issues. Those horses I sent to Oaklawn, we train a large amount of horses. So I get there, the condition book's been out for, couple months, 3 months. I knew I was going to send 20 horses there. And so shame on me if I didn't pick the right ones to send. And it's worked out well.
And Mark, do you do anything differently at your farm before you're getting horses ready to go to Oaklawn? Because it is a little bit of a unique surface there. It's not like that the Oaklawn surface it is similar to other tracks that we're used to running in over the summer, for example. Is there something different that you are doing?
I think, John, Oaklawn and Churchill are a lot alike. So I think if you have a horse that's handling Churchill Downs, or Keeneland, I think they're more likely going to run very well at Oaklawn. I try not to. I tried when I send my horses there. I like them to be ready to run for the most part, because if you go to Oaklawn and you think you're going to have perfect weather, you're only kidding yourself. So there's going to be down times. So you try to send horses that are fit. A great example was we had a very impressive 2-year-old, 3-year-old winner. Now he's a 3-year-old, top level on Friday. He ran one time at Gulfstream on the grass. As you know, I like running. If I could run every horse on the grass first time, I would do it. I ran him. He had that race, and I put him on a van and sent him to Oaklawn because he was ready and he was in the spot. And as it turned, it doesn't always work that way. I sent others there that haven't done it, but if I try to be right more than I'm wrong. It doesn't always work that way, but yeah.
Yep. And just as a follow-up question, so you had the big weekend. You thought that you were going to have a couple of good horses running. I give my cohort here, Joe, a lot of credit for singling out Silent Tactic in the prep race as the horse of yours to beat in that race, the $500,000 Tacitus colt. Going into those races, did you think, because you flew up there from Florida, did you think, okay, if I win a couple of these races, I'll be doing well? Or did you honestly think, you know what, I got a shot to hit and win all of these stakes?
No, well, I thought, looking at it, I thought that I knew Silent Tactic was going to be pretty good. He had run his first start. He ran second in the Smarty Jones. He was one of the few horses that actually closed that day. But more importantly, John, he had just gotten there. He had one easy breeze. He had come from Woodbine and never had run on the dirt. Ran good, came back and trained really well. So I was expecting a big effort. I was expecting a big effort out of Strategic Risk, and we didn't get it. Same thing. If you said to me, you're going to have one winner, I'm going to show you how smart I am. If you said you're going to have one winner this weekend, besides nitrogen, we'll take nitrogen out of the picture. I would have told you that we were going to win the Martha Washington with Counting Stars.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
That just shows you.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mark, but that kind of leads me to my next question, because she just threw in a total clunker and, got eased in the stretch. This is the second time she's done this. Like, she's got such weird past performances, has the 3 blowout wins and then the 2 total stinkers. What do you do with a horse like that, Mark? Because like you said, she came back perfectly physically. It seems like it's got to be a mental thing. Have you had horses like that before? And then kind of what is your game plan for them if you have?
I have, but I don't know if I've ever had that extreme. The day after the race, she had more energy than all the others. It just was amazing to me. And I'm like, you and I had a conversation after she ran so poorly at Keeneland. And I said, I have no idea. I have no idea why she ran that way. And, of course, then she came back and ran 2 super races. So she trained good. They sent me a video of her training this morning. She looked great galloping. I'm going to train her like that race race never happened, and go to the Honeybee. You also got to remember, every horse is an individual. And, every horse treats time off differently. So we had 12 days where we couldn't train. Maybe that was part of it. I don't think so. I think if you asked me, I think there was more a factor with Strategic Risk than her.
Right.
But you know what? They're animals. They're not machines, and they all have different personalities. So yeah. I don't know, Joe.
And a perfect personality, question then would be, let's talk about the Queen. Let's talk about nitrogen and the fact that going into the race, we had multiple conversations about, how is she doing, and is the one breeze going to be enough for her? And Joe, usually my strategy with Mark is I don't want to micromanage him, especially from up here in New Jersey. So I don't ask him about a horse that often. I think I broke the rule with her, and like every day for 5 straight days, I was like, "How's the big mare? How's the big mare? How's the big?" Because the and you've said this publicly, like you weren't sure that you wanted to run her in this race. I mean, the Azeri was really the one that we were looking for. And off of that breeze, she came out of it obviously in top shape, and then had to wait, a week and a half before we could run her again. You said something very interesting to the press, and I hadn't thought about it this way. You said, "I didn't want to disappoint her. I'm a steward of her career, and she's a champion, and I didn't want to put her in a position to fail." And we think of it the other way. We think of it most of the time of we run a horse and, oh, this horse disappointed us. But that's the first time I've ever heard a trainer say outwardly, I'm a steward of her career. I didn't want to disappoint her. What made you think of it that way?
I've kind of, John, always thought of it that way. They can't walk, they can't talk, right? They go out, they give you everything they have, especially in like a nitrogen. That's my job. It's my job to protect them. It doesn't matter whether it's nitrogen or a maiden $5,000 claimer. It's my job to protect them. And I would say that I heard more from John leading up to that race than I have ever. In fact, he'd call me and I kind of laugh to Tina and say, "Oh, John, I think John's nervous." And I can tell you that I never said anything, but John called me a few days ahead of time, and he was like, "I just wanted to let you know we're not coming." And I was like, "Oh, that's too bad." But it was relief, because
you're not in the minority on that feeling, Mark.
I didn't ever want that to influence my decision that they had come, which it wouldn't have. It would have just been harder. I really decided we were going to run the day of the race, because I watched her and I know her. Amazing thing about her is physically she probably looks better now than she ever has in her life. And she was so bright and so alert. And then it also helped. I had 3 videos of her. I had a video of her breaking off, a video of her working down the stretch, and a video of her galloping out. And then you saw so she galloped out 3/4 in 13. And I was like, and we got a good post too. I would have been a little nervous. Yeah, I kind of felt like we were going to be able to control how we wanted to do it. And I told Jose in the paddock, I said, "Jose, this filly's probably 85%. So I said, I want you to ride her that way and know that maybe when you call on her, it's not all going to be there." And he even, I think I read where he commented afterwards, he rode her with confidence, but he also rode her knowing that she might get tired, and I thought it was and John and I had you and I had this conversation. If we passed this race, then I was going to have to train her so much harder for the next one. Look, you and your father have a lot of credit for her, because the key to her career, I mean, there's been a lot of, one, you allowed me to take her to the Breeders' Cup. Not everybody would have done that, a maiden. So we did that. You allowed me to do that. But the big factor, which would have been everything, was the Wonder Again, because I was struggling with running her in the Wonder Again. I really was. Again, here I have this filly who's the best filly in the country, turf filly. And do I want to let her down? Do I want to put her in a position where she could look bad? And I struggled with it big time. And John and Len said to me, "Look, we'll take it. You run her, and she doesn't run well, you can blame us." And I would never do that, but that meant a lot. It did. And so that helped me make that decision. We ran her, and of course the rest is history. Same thing came the other day for the Bayakoa. I was like, John, I just need you to know I'm not worried about her getting hurting herself. I'm worried, but she may get beat. Because I have to tell you, our other filly, Missouri, she's a good horse. She has come
nice filly.
leaps and bounds. And John said, we get it, we understand, and they always let me make the final decision, and which I appreciate. And people don't understand. I can tell you over the years where people that make decisions or tell me what to do can hurt their horses progression. Maybe I look at myself as, if you want to call it baseball, I feel like I've won a few World Series, but you would be amazed. Some people that want to listen to their little league coach when it comes to horse racing, it amazes me.
Yep.
We don't have that
No
problem.
doubt. Yeah, no, you've done an excellent job with her, despite John's micromanaging. It's been an incredibly campaigned horse. Let's talk about the other Rail Talk family horses before we get out of here. It's Sandman and Ewing, two OBS March graduates, by the way, with the new OBS chairman, Mark Casse. So Sandman got stuck in a little bit of traffic on the far turn, didn't really get to stretch his legs out. Think that's kind of a useful springboard for him, nevertheless. And then Ewing's coming back on Monday in the Ozark, going 6 furlongs at Oaklawn. So it's a two-part question. What did you think of Sandman's return race and where it sets him up? And then the other part is, what's kind of the long-term game plan for Ewing?
So Sandman, I thought his race was okay. I knew, when he drew the inside post, as good as Nitrogen's post was, his was that bad. There wasn't a whole lot of speed in the race. Jose and I talked about it, and Sandman he needs pace, and he's a big striding horse. He needs to be able to get in the clear. He's not like when you hit the gas pedal, it takes him. When you hit the gas pedal on Nitrogen, she's like a Tesla.
Right.
He's not like that. It takes him a little while. He ended up, and I don't know where it happened, Joe, but he gashed to the inside of his right front, middle part of his cannon bone pretty good in the race as well. So, he had blood coming from it, and it blew up on him. So that didn't help him. But I thought, all in all, I think he got beat, a couple lengths. He's running against older horses for the first time, horses that have all been running.
Right.
So I know that he didn't run as well as many wanted him to. And of course, there's a lot of there's a lot of opinions and everything. Exactly.
So we can effectively blame the loss on Griffin, Mark.
Yeah, it's Griffin's fault. I love Griffin, by the way.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
He's a great guy. So we'll see. I'm still flirting with the idea of the Razorback. I do want him. I think it's important, though, that we try to get him winning, and maybe another allowance race. I haven't decided. As far as Ewing goes, I didn't feel, Ewing, when you have a horse that is a stakes winner at 2, you're so limited to where you can run because there's no races. Right. It's not like an older horse where you can run an allowance race. Was Ewing ready to run in the Southwest? No, he was not. So now I have to look at what's my second best choice. And it's this race coming up on the 16th. You asked, where does he go from here? I don't know. I'm going to take it. I want to see. He's got to learn to relax.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a fireball. And if he doesn't relax, he has no shot of running long.
Right.
So we got to, again, I've said it a million times, training horses is putting a puzzle together. So you got to keep trying the pieces. We're going to try a piece, see where it fits, and then go from there. It could be that maybe he's a great sprinter.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we aim for the Pat Day Mile, which is a super race on Derby Day. We are a little bit behind the 8 ball right now when you start talking about the Kentucky Derby, to be honest.
Right.
Yep.
I just don't know if there's enough time for him to mature and to do all those things.
For sure. John, got one more?
So Mark, the other bit of news that I'd like to, get your weigh in on and opinion on is, there's been a lot of talk back and forth between the Repole camp and the Jockey Club and everything like that. What do we need? What do we need as an industry to move forward?
John, that's a good question. And I've been thinking about it, obviously Aaron Wellman, I trained for Aaron. He came out. I read his statement last night. I'm not sure. There are a lot of smart men and women that are involved with horse racing,
mm-hmm.
and very, they've done big things in their industry, in their fields. We just need to get these heads together and try to maybe we do need a commissioner. Maybe we do, but who is the commissioner? I love Mike. He's passionate and absolutely, he's got to be a brilliant guy. But I'm not sure he's the guy to be our commissioner.
Right.
We need somebody that can kind of get along with everybody and listen to ideas. We have a fair amount of money in the kiddies when you look at the Breeders' Cup, the Jockey Club, and I think we need those organizations to maybe invest a little bit more right now. We are struggling. So much has been said about smaller crops. I don't see that happening. I don't see that changing. We have less racetracks. We have, in life, things change. They never stay the same. What we have to do is use what we have and use it better. Now, I do believe, I'm hearing whispers that there's a couple other states that could possibly be getting in horse racing soon, which I think would be good. And that would help. That could help our foal crops. But, to sit there, you go back when I first, 40 years ago or 50 years ago, we didn't have all the lotteries. We didn't have all the on track, all this betting. Things have changed. I know I read somewhere somebody said something about Japan. Japan's different. They're not the U.S. They don't have all the gambling sites. They love horse racing because that's what they have. Right. So I honestly don't have an answer for you, but I do think that there are plenty of smart people out there in this game that love it, like you and I, right?
Yep.
What about me?
That we can.
It was the royal you, Joe. Everyone knows that you love it. But Mark, it's safe to say you're not throwing your hat in the ring to be the new commissioner of the industry.
I am absolutely, positively not going to be the commissioner.
That's the smartest thing I've ever heard.
It took some pushing to get me to be the chairman of the board of the OBS, and I did it honestly. My passion. And I think I'm a little different, John. Most of the people there at OBS on our board are sellers. You and I are buyers. And so I think we look at it a different way. And I think it's important to have that adversity. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you, my father was the chairman for 25 years.
Right.
And I think he's probably a proud father somewhere up there in heaven,
no
looking down.
No doubt about that.
So,
yeah, no doubt about that. And It's just so great to talk to you always, Mark. Appreciate all the time. Congrats on all the success. And new chairman of OBS to go along with the dual Hall of Famer resume. Congratulations again, bud. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Real Talk is sponsored by Fasig-Tipton, the Fasig-Tipton digital sale. You can enter now. The sale dates are February 19th through the 24th, and you don't have to look further back than this past weekend to see the potential benefits of the digital sale. We saw it with Foie Gras with a win in the Bugler Stakes at Oaklawn. This is his second stakes win since he was bought for $100,000 at the Fasig-Tipton December digital sale. So I'm not just blowing smoke. This is a horse that they bought for $100,000, has already made more than that in like a month and a half on the racetrack with 2 stakes wins. So there's so much value in these horses at the Fasig-Tipton digital sale, especially early in the year when people aren't really, their minds aren't really on shopping the sales so far. A lot of value and a lot of nice horses that you can get to win some stakes races, reload the barn going into the rest of the year. Shout out to Foie Gras and the connections for being sharp and taking advantage of that digital sales marketplace. And, it's definitely something that you should be involved in if you aren't yet. And want to give a shout out to Grade 1 winner I Scream, You Scream, who topped the Kentucky Winter Mixed Sale on Monday, sold for $1.5 million to Katsumi Yoshida. This was a late supplement to the sale. Grade 1 Del Mar Oaks winner, a tremendous sale for Boyd Browning and the rest of the team. Numbers up huge, 40%, building on the record year that they had last year. So congratulations to all the team. Facing tremendous start to the year for the sales calendar. So definitely keep an eye out for those brick and mortar sales. We have obviously the May Mid-Atlantic sale that we're really looking forward to, but in the meantime, definitely go to digital.facigtipton.com and restock that stable. Couple of topics and stories we want to touch on quickly here. We went over it a little bit with Mark about the ongoing back and forth between the Florida Horsemen and Gulfstream and now the legislature. So just in the past week, of course, right after we recorded last week, the Florida House Committee passed the new decoupling bill. And so that goes to the Florida full House now for a vote. It's unclear whether or not that's going to go through the Senate or the Senate's going to have a different bill at this point. It seems as if we're still in a relatively good spot because of what DeSantis said last year, but he's only in office until 2027. Then there's going to be a new governor. And just wanted to, piggyback on that. This was a story that happened on December 31st that we were meant to touch on, but we have so much to talk about on these shows, that the Florida HBPA reached an agreement with Gulfstream for like a 3-year minimum racing schedule. So it guarantees no less than 180 live race days for this year, 2026, no less than 140 for next year, and then no less than 120 for 2028. The previous contract was about to expire, so it was good that they were able to come to that agreement. Obviously, the specter of decoupling is still hanging over everything. John, I want to toss it to you because you are more plugged into these things. What does this agreement mean? And then in terms of the new bill that's going through the Florida House, where would that leave us if somehow that ends up passing and getting signed by the governor?
Yeah, and Joe, you almost have to keep it siloed, even though we're talking about South Florida racing. So just as you mentioned, the Florida Horsemen did come to an agreement with management to have a 3-year schedule. Originally it had been a year-to-year contract. Sometimes it was extended a little bit more, but the Horsemen really dug their heels in and said, no, we want to have a 3-year guarantee. And in exchange for that 3-year guarantee, we're willing to have reduced dates on a sliding scale for the next couple of years. So I was not in the room or in the rooms when these deals were done, but I'm very close to a lot of people who are still on the Florida Horsemen's group, and I give a lot of credit to President Tom Cannell and to Chester Bishop and Joe Orsino and Safi Joseph and the men and women who make up the Florida Horsemen's board, because they really stuck together and said, nope, this is what we want. We want to have a 3-year deal. And we want to make sure that we can go back to the others, owners, trainers, and breeders and be able to tell them in full confidence that we have a 3-year deal agreed upon with management. And that was the most important thing, was that it was a multi-year. That's what I heard was the most important thing, was that a multi-year commitment from management in exchange, for the guarantee that we reduce dates, by the horsemen. So that's in one silo. Now, what can upset the apple cart? Well, simply, if decoupling occurs in Tallahassee, then this contract is not as meaningful, because basically it gives, first the opportunity to pull the plug sooner. Okay, it's not going to be immediate, but they have the opportunity to pull the plug sooner if they want to, or if they can work out an exit deal with with the parties that big. So, just like last year, Joe, just to give you a quick behind the curtain, last year, the decoupling bill went into the House. Subcommittee number 1 was changed a little bit and ultimately approved. Went to subcommittee number 2, tweaked a little bit, ultimately approved, went on the House. And then by the time it got to the Senate, it had already lost steam, thanks to the coalition, not only of Thoroughbred Racing Initiative, but the Gulfstream Horsemen, the Tampa Horsemen, and the Florida Breeders, and OBS. I mean, it was really a group of 5 different organizations that got together to stomp it out. And again, I give a tip of the cap, because Mike Repole actually got the governor to come to the OBS sales and see what was going on, and have a quick 10, 15-minute meeting with everybody to have a better understanding of what exactly it meant from an impactful standpoint to the state of Florida. And he was even surprised that, when we threw the numbers out, that it was a $3 billion impact on the state of Florida. So he immediately went back and said, I'm not approving this. And it kind of died on the vine in the Senate. Fast forward to now, same playbook. They came back and said, we want to have decoupling. It went through a House subcommittee, got approved. It is now going to the House floor. We expect it to get approved there. But ultimately in the Senate, it's, our understanding is that it's not going to make it through the Senate. Again, if it does, it's a huge surprise. But it doesn't mean that we can't stop fighting, and that we can't stop having conversations with both First and with other alternatives to find out, after the 3-year commitment that Gulfstream gave the horsemen, once that expires, we need to have some kind of alternative plan if Gulfstream is not going to continue to have racing. That kind of in a nutshell is where we are on both fronts.
Gotcha. And there's one other thing I wanted to get your take on, because it seems as though the new bill that's going through the House committee it restricts the ability to move the racing license, which Gulfstream has right now. And I think the idea previously was that, hey, if Gulfstream shuts down, we can, finagle and get them to sell or move the license to another racetrack or, another developer or whatever. It seems as if this one, am I reading this correctly, John, that if this bill passes, then the racing license dies if Gulfstream goes away?
That's my understanding, but Joe, it's not the only golden ticket that's out there. There are a couple of groups that have the proper license to be able to have live racing that could be transferable, or if they're included and involved, then it doesn't have to be transferred. But there's a lot. I wouldn't necessarily make that the major sticking point in the concern. It is a concern, but to me, the bigger concern is going to be, if we don't have racing in South Florida, there is a mile radius around Tampa Bay Downs that precludes you from having live racing within that radius. To me, that's a bigger hurdle that you have to overcome. But it's not negotiating with an adverse party in the sense of like Gulfstream. It's negotiating with Tampa Bay Downs as to, how will they allow us to will they allow to have additional racing in and around or within that radius that right now the state says you can't have, opposing factions in.
Gotcha. But if Tampa, forfeited their racing calendar, then they wouldn't be opposing. No, it would
Then,
be.
that's my understanding. Right now Tampa Bay Downs is kind of in a weird position because they have signed on one of the bills for decoupling, but they're not like necessarily enforcing it. Like it's a weird scenario that they understand their strategy. I'm not understanding their strategy altogether. But again, that's kind of for greater minds. That's for Damon Thayer to work out. That's who's our consultant. That's for our lobbyists to work out. And ultimately that's for the lawyers to work out if we get to that point. But there's a lot of hurdles that have to be overcome between now and then before we start worrying about, do we have encroachment issues on Tampa Bay's jurisdiction?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that was surprising to me. I guess because I thought that the family, or at least the matriarch of the family at Tampa, wanted to keep racing there, but I don't know, maybe the rest of the family doesn't feel the same way, so they want to have all their bases covered. Because I was surprised to see Tampa as part of this effort alongside Gulfstream, but it's just watch this space. We'll continue to update, and John will obviously have the good intel being part of the TRI. And this is like obviously great opportunity if you want to support the Thoroughbred Racing Initiative. You go to thoroughbredracinginitiative.org, and then you can donate and donate your time or donate your money. So obviously an ongoing fight, and we'll keep you posted on what happens going forward. I don't want to say less consequential fight, but differently consequential fight going on right now is the ongoing war of words between Mike Repole and the Jockey Club. Aaron Wellman of Eclipse Thoroughbreds posted a letter to the editor in the TDN this week supporting Mike, and this was in response to the Jockey Club board, posting a rebuttal to some of Mike's claims a couple of weeks ago. John, I know this is something that you've been paying close attention to. What are your thoughts?
Joe, I wish that it was just a matter of like a he said, she said, and people could take sides and make, and move forward with it. But I think what's being lost in all of the conversations back and forth, whether it's between Mike Repole on Twitter, the Jockey Club, who finally decided to answer and respond to some of Mike's, inquiries and thoughts. Aaron Wellman's response to both of their responses, and it's kind of getting to be like the game of telephone, where it's getting a little further and further away from the point. But to me, there's a bigger existential problem, and it doesn't matter if it's being pointed out by Mike, if it's being defended by the Jockey Club, if other people like Aaron Wellman are coming into the conversation and saying, don't listen to the messengers, listen to the messages, which is what I think Aaron was trying to accomplish in his letter to the editor. But Joe, to me, it's a bigger issue. The bigger issue at hand isn't is the Jockey Club mismanaging money or not doing things properly, or should they be doing things better? And again, I'm a newly minted member of the Jockey Club as of the middle of August when I got in, and our first meeting is going to be next week. So I'll have some additional information to be able to share. But years ago, when the Jockey Club, who is the registrar of our business, okay, they are the registration department and division of the industry, came out and said, we want to have a mare cap. I was against it. And I was against it primarily because of I'm a free market guy, and I don't think you should put artificial caps on. Now, one of the things that ultimately I think made the Jockey Club scuttle that option is that their lawyers came back and said, we don't have the jurisdiction to mandate this, to implement this. Okay. So when Mike or anybody else who's anti-Jockey Club comes in and says, why isn't the Jockey Club doing this? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they? Well, you know what? To me, there's a purview issue. Okay. As far as what they can and can't do, what legally they're allowed to do. Now, are they allowed to, they have a business, they have a, certain division on registration, certain division on Equibase and information, and they have a nonprofit. Can they do a better job? I think everyone can do a better job of managing funds. And the rumor is that they have $100 million under management at Bessemer Trust. Okay, I don't know if that's true or not, but let's say it is for a quote unquote rainy day fund. Well, I would think that if that's true, that them coming out and saying we're going to put another couple $1 million into aftercare, that to me personally, as a person, not as a Jockey Club member, but that is not enough when you're sitting on that kind of money. And I would say it to the Breeders' Cup also. And I'm on the Breeders' Cup. I'm a part of the Breeders' Cup as well. When you have that kind of vast wealth and that kind of deep pockets, and you're not using it to help save or improve parts of the industry that need it, then in my estimation, you're not a good steward of the money. You're not doing what you should do. Now, can they save racing in California? No, that's not what they can do. Can they go ahead and buy a racetrack, and have racing in Ocala or Wellington? No, they can't do that. But Joe, if they wanted to come back, they being the Jockey Club in this case, come back and say, you know what? We've been having declining foal crops every year. So for the next 2 years, we are going to waive the $300 fee, registration fee, and see as an experiment if that improves or increases the number of foals. Let's say it increases it from 17,000 to 20,000 foals. Okay, an increase of 3,000 foals, which percentage-wise is a big move. But just to keep the math easy, and it's $325. That means that the Jockey Club basically is putting $6.5 million up for 2 years. So $13 million of their $100 and something million war chest, to see whether or not that increases the number of horses that are bred, born, and therefore increase the foal crop. That is something I think they can do. That is within their rights as the registrar to offer, is to say, we are going to have an abatement of and free nominations, registrations for the next 2 years, and let's see if that works. That is something but all these other things, or most of these other things that other people are saying, whether it's Mike Repole or other people are saying that they should or shouldn't do, I don't think they have the ability to do it anyway, even if they wanted to. But do I think they have the responsibility, the Jockey Club and the Breeders' Cup in this case, to better utilize the money to help the industry? Absolutely, I think they can. Okay. And that's just a man on the street who has not sat in on a meeting yet for the Jockey Club. But I think that it's unfair. Some of the criticisms are very unfair because they just they're not the governing body of our industry. But we need to have a governing body of our industry, because all of these fractional interests and fiefdoms and everything like that that's been occurring for the past 100-something years has brought us to this point. We can't have the status quo anymore. We need to have some free thinkers and some really good ideas, because we don't have the luxury of time anymore. And to me, those are some of the points that I would like to at least put out there. Again, not pro or con anybody in this discussion as far as Jockey Club, Breeders' Cup, Mike Repole, Aaron Wellman. I think they all have great intentions, and I think they all have important roles in this business. But let's not mix messages here. Certain people, certain groups can and can't do certain things.
Yeah, no, it's great. And to me, the 3 minutes you just talked is the first 3 minutes of substance I've seen in this entire conversation that's been going on for what seems like years now.
Right.
And that's what drives me crazy, is there is just so much back and forth, so much personal back and forth, and so much hot air in this discussion that it's like finding a needle in a haystack, trying to figure out what the actual actionable ideas are to improve the game and move forward. And that's what drives me crazy. And I thought when you sent me that link to Aaron Wellman's letter to the editor, I thought that was what was going to be. I thought that was going to be, here are the ideas that Mike has, here's why I support them. But no, it was just more personal, like, well, you might not agree with Mike, but he's on the right track. And it's just like, at what point do we actually get to a movable path forward? Because I agree. Like if anybody in this business is sitting on 9 figures of money and not actively doing stuff with it to improve the breed and improve the marketability and improve the betting handle, then that's a huge problem.
Right.
And that needs to be discussed at every possible opportunity.
And that's our money, Joe. That's the
Right.
thing. Like it's not like ours an industry, not like yours and mine, but it's our money.
The
as an
royal R.
industry. Yes, I guess. But I would say that yeah, there's got to be a better use of the money rather than just say it's a rainy day fund. And Wellman said something that was very, very appropriate, which is it's a rainy day fund. Well, it's fucking raining. It's pouring outside. Like this is when we need the break glass for emergency funds to get this done. And it's not just the Jockey Club. I would say that the Breeders' Cup also, has some culpability in this situation as well, because they've done a very good job of managing that weekend. Now it's a weekend. I mean, it used to be just a day of racing. Now it's a weekend. And it is a cornerstone of our industry. And it is something that everyone gears up from. And quite frankly, it is so important that like the majority of horses that win the championships at the end of each year, that win the Eclipse, are winners of their respective races in the Breeders' Cup. That's how lofty it is, and how many horses are coming over worldwide. They have done a phenomenal job in that in that department of raising the esteem and the field size and all those things of our championship races. But they should not be the ones that are saving certain sectors of racing itself. They just should be able to use the money a little bit better. And Joe, one more thing that just rubs me the wrong way, that again, a bee in my bonnet, if you will, on this, is that, there's been a lot of people who have been complaining about HISA and complaining about, well, it's not the greatest system in the world and blah, blah, blah. Why are we doing it? $60 million, blah, blah, blah. And the Jockey Club came in and loaned them money. And therefore, people who are on the Jockey Club, get a pass by HISA. I can't say things are bigger bullshit than that. And when Congress came through, just understand the way that HISA came about. When Congress came through and said, we are going to approve this, but you need to have money. They mandated this. The initial funding of HISA needs to come from entities outside of the scope of HISA, which means it can't come from any owner. It can't come from any breeder. It can't come from anybody, any trainer, anyone who's going to be under their purview, to avoid a conflict of interest. Well, guess what? There's only one other entity in the entire industry that had the money that could loan them to start it, and that's the Jockey Club. So I don't think there's any of this wild conspiracy that people in the Jockey Club get a fairer shake or get to look the other way when it comes to HISA. That's the only way that this was going to get funded for our industry, was that we had to have that initial loan. Otherwise, Congress wouldn't approve the other monies coming in. So again, we can talk till we're blue in the face about whether or not HISA is good or not, or whether or not it's working, or whether or not it's gotten things safer, better. There's arguments to be made on both sides. What I will say is that it was one of 2 times recently that our industry got together and actually got something accomplished. And it was HISA, and it was, beating decoupling. Those are the 2 times that we have the ability to do it. We can do it. I won't be cheerleader, but we have the ability to get really smart people together and figure shit out and make things better for the industry. We have a recent history of it. Now we just need to continue to roll the ball and, run the ball forward, because we have momentum. But doing it and throwing mud at each other and saying, well, if I'm not getting my way, then I'm gonna sue you for it, and we'll see you in court. That's not the best way to do it. Now, it may be an effective negotiation, way for Mike to come in and be able to get a seat at the table if that's what he wants. But I don't even know if that's what he wants anymore.
Well, that's the thing, is like so much of this becomes so personal that it's like, where is the substance? And, like he proposed having the 4 hours debate with him and like the Jockey Club board, which honestly, I would be in like a vacuum. I would be all for that. Like, let's have a forum where like the critics of the Jockey Club and the Jockey Club get in a room, televise it. But Mike, like, you cannot stay on topic. You cannot not interrupt people. Like, we've seen it. We had you on the show, and your tweet storms, like, it just, like, if you really would commit to, like, you get 90 seconds per answer, and then we cut your mic off and you cannot talk past that until the other person has 90 seconds to respond. I would love that. Sign me up. I'd fucking moderate it. If you want me and John to moderate it, we would. But, like, there has just been so much mudslinging and so much personal animus clouding any kind of vision for the future of the sport that, to me, as it's currently constructed, it is not going to be productive. And that's what drives me crazy about this, is like, he's like yelling at Repole, like to cover the lawsuit and all this stuff. Like, where is the meat of the lawsuit? Like, tell me exactly what you want to prove, what you want to have rectified, and then people will talk about it. But until then, it's just a lot of yapping, and I'm so tired of it. And I'm like, again, like, not to pick on Aaron, because I like Aaron too, but like, when I saw that letter to the editor, I thought that was going to be like a substantive point-by-point rebuttal of what the Jockey Club said, and it just wasn't that. And I just think people are getting so wrapped up in taking a side. Like, are you on Mike's side? Are you on the Jockey Club side? And it's like, I am not on either side. Like, I need smart people smarter than me, people who have way more money than me, to get in a fucking room and actually talk to each other, and not talk at each other and past each other, because that's what's been happening for the last several years, and it has done nothing to improve the future or even the present of our sport.
Yeah, and I think, again, I can't speak for Aaron, but I spoke to him about this, and I think the meat of what he was trying to accomplish here is to say just what you said. Mike is bombastic. Mike's annoying sometimes. Mike, I was on the phone with Mike on Saturday, and I said, Mike, the biggest compliment I can give you, aside from the fact that I think you're a really smart guy, is that you're less of an asshole than I thought you were, when I first met you. And he laughed, and he got his wife on the phone, and his wife said, yeah, when I first met Mike, I thought he was an asshole too. So like Mike plays that up also. I mean, he's not like that in, all the time. He's a really interesting and smart guy. But until we get past this, like, okay, this personality thing, and let's stop listening to the messenger and listen to the message on both sides, for that matter, because you can say the same thing about the Jockey Club as far as, like, hey, they, over the years, their brand has been to be, kind of the stuffy old school group that ran the business 100 years ago, and they're coming out of that. God knows that you wouldn't ask me to be in the group if it was the old guard that had still been running the business for a while. But I think we have to get past the personalities at this point and say we're on our deathbed as an industry, and we need to get really smart people together and figure shit out, because otherwise there isn't going to be an industry anymore.
All right, so that's going to do it for episode 123 of Rail Talk. Thank you to Mark Casse for stopping by and giving us the lay of the land in this industry, as he always does. Congratulations again on the OBS chairmanship. And can't wait to see the first couple of sales with him in charge. Thank you to my co-pilot, Jon Green. Appreciate our producer, Patty Wolf, and our associate producers, Julia Agresta and Nathan Wilkinson. Thank you for watching. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, wherever you get your pods. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next week back here on Rail Talk.